This is a video tutorial on how to turn a orthographic drawing or a technical drawing into a CAD model. So I've got an orthographic drawing here of a basic photo frame, and you can see that the first sheet on this has got the rendered image of the photo frame with all the parts on it, all labelled up and including the materials. Then I've got my standard orthographic views. I've got my front view, I've got my top view or my plan view, and I've got my side view. And this gives me most of my dimensions. It tells me the overall size, and this is the same for the front acrylic sheet and the back sheet. If we have a look here, you've got your front acrylic sheet and you've got your back sheet. And then it tells me the thicknesses of my materials. So all my materials here, my back layer is 3mm, my front layer is 3mm, and overall they're 9mm, and 9 minus 3 minus 3 is 3. I didn't put all the measurements on one side because that would have looked too cluttered and potentially confusing. So I went for this orientation of my measurements. There's not a lot of measurements to put on here, so that's what I went with. I then got this cross-sectional view, and this gives me the remainder of my measurements. So what I've got here is the symbol for the cross-section here, as you can see. So A to A and A to A, and the arrows are the direction I'm looking, and the line here, the center line, shows whereabouts I'm looking. That's where we've cut the model in half, and that's what we're looking at from this left-hand direction. And you can see it here. And here you can see my overall width is the same. I've got my 3 parts here which have been cut up, and you can see that they're hatched to show that they are separate parts and they've been looked inside of, and the measurements for them. So they're all 10 in depth, and then this one is 100 and these two are 170. So from my drawing I can see all the parts I need to see. What I now need to do is from this drawing start making them. So let's start by working from this, and we're going to move on to this view. So I'm going to keep my drawings in my top right hand corner up here. So up here. So they're my drawings, and that's going to allow me to keep seeing what I'm doing. This does mean that some of my screen is going to be obscured, but anything I'm going to do up there I'll try and remember and see what I'm doing and even show you, because I can just do that. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do, as I should always do, is save. I'm going to save my work. I've got a separate folder for this, a new project folder, and I've labeled it, so that is now saved. And you can see up here, we've got it saved. We're going to work using the component system. So we're not going to make all the individual parts as separate files and drag them in. We're going to work with the component system. So to do that, with my main active component being the whole sheet or the whole project, I'm going to create a new component. So I'm going to start with the back. I'm going to label it as back and press OK. Now on my back piece, I can start by drawing out. So you can see over here, I've got it's 170 wide and 120 high. So if I go to a new sketch, I'm going to look from the front, and I'm going to do a rectangle. So I'm going to do my rectangle from about there up, and I'm going to type 120 and then press tab, switch to the other dimension and make that 170. Press enter to readjust my view, and there we have it, 120 by 170. I can now press finish sketch. So the button for me is in the top right, so you won't be able to see that, but I can press finish sketch here. I can then go to my extrude functions. I'm going to move that all down there so you can see my settings. So with the extrude functions, I'm going to set my depth, my distance, which is going to be 3mm. If I hold shift and middle mouse button and drag the mouse, I can make it look 3D, and I can see that, yep, that's extruding to that depth. Okay, that's the first part done. I'm now going to select the active component to be the whole photo frame file again. If I hadn't done that and I created a new component with this one selected, the new component would be part of and inside of that component, which will cause a lot of problems for joints and movement. So we're going to keep it in separate, so make them all equal. So with this one selected, I'm going to press new component and I'm going to start looking at my spacers. So spacer 1. Now there's two ways to make the spacers. We can go with draw the width and the height and extrude the depth, or we can draw from the side the height and the depth and extrude the width. Both are accurate, both are the same. There is no right or wrong in this. It's mainly down to preference. My preference would be to draw the profile of the width and the height and extrude the depth. So I'm going to do that for the first one. I'll do a new sketch on the front plane. I'll go a little bit further down here so I can do it out of the way. With my rectangle tool, I'm going to go 10 on my height and 170 on my width. I can then finish my sketch and I can press E to extrude, or it's the same as clicking extrude up there, shortcut E. Distance of 3, press enter, and that's that bit done. And I've made my first spacer. I'm going to select my main file again. I'm going to go to the joint tool. So the joint tool here would allow me to join them together. And here's where we've got to pay a little bit of attention. So I want to join this piece here to this piece here. I want to find somewhere where they line up nice and easy. So I'm going to go with the corners. I'm going to zoom close in. I'm going to select that surface as it highlights light grey. And then I'm going to hover over and select the node on that surface. So I'm going to select the top corner node. Now notice I've done it on the back of this one. And I'm going to go to the front of this one. This is just a way to make sure that you're looking at the areas. If you're struggling to remember how and what to look at, think what part of which one are going to be glued together. If they're being glued together, which surface would be glued to which surface and how would you align them? So I'm going to select this surface here and this node, my corner alignment, and it snaps up there. Now if I do need to, I can move it and adjust it like that. If I zoom in closer, it gives me much more finer control over that, and you can use some of the settings over here, so on. But I do not need to move it because I've aligned it exactly how I want it. I can press OK, and that's done. Now, seeing these little joint markers does get a little bit irritating for me personally, so I hide them. Over on the left here, I've got the joint option. I can make them not visible. I can't see them. It doesn't make the joints not there. The joint is still there. It's still, I'm trying to click and drag it. It's not moving. It's still joined. You just can't see the marker for it. So now I'm going to make the second spacer component. So I'm going to have my main file selected and I'm going to make new component. And it says here component 3. I'm going to call this spacer 2. Now with this one selected here, I'm going to create my new sketch. But this time, instead of doing it, looking at that surface and doing the measurements, I'm going to look at the profile. So I'm going to look from below and draw on the bottom plate, or on the bottom. I'm going to move over to the side, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to draw my rectangle. So I'm looking there at now my depth, my thickness of material, and my width. So that's going to be 3 for my depth and 10 for my width. I can now finish my sketch. I'm going to orientate my screen a little bit. Press E to extrude, and I'm extruding this 100 millimeters. And as you can see, I get the part just as I would have done the other way. It's just a different way of doing it. It's down to preference. There's more than one way to do a lot of things. So I'm trying to show you all the different ways we can. I'm now going to join this onto here. Now here's where we get a bit trickier. We don't have a corner node on here to join to, but we do have this one here. What we can do, we can join to the corner surfaces on here from here. It doesn't have to be there to there. It can be there to under there. So we'll go to the joint tool and I'll start here. And if we look at where we can do either corner on this surface here. So I'm going to select that surface. I'm going to select that corner. I'm now going to spin around, and on that surface there, I'm going to select that corner. As you can see, it snaps in. Happy days. If you're still new to doing this, a little bit of thought in advance, a little bit of thinking about what's going to go where will save you a lot of hassle. Right, we now just make the last spacer to go across here. So again, main file selected, new component. This will be spacer 3. And then I'm going to do this the same as the first way. Do my sketch on the front plane. And then rectangle. And it's going to be 10 high and 170 wide. That's done. Exit that. Press extrude. Adjust my view just so I can see what's happening. 3mm thickness. And that one's done. I'm going to go back to my whole assembly. I'm going to go to my joint tool. Now this one, because it's going along the bottom here, I can snap to any of these, either of these two corner nodes, or even the center point. I'm going to show you the center point one. So we're going to go with this surface here and the bottom center point node. Because this aligns perfectly, I can use this tool. So I can go on this surface, the bottom center point there, and it lines up just how I want it to go. Very nice. And that is okay. And the final thing to do is make the acrylic piece to go on the front. So if we look at our screen here, our drawing, we've got 3 layers. I've got 2 layers, and the third layer is our acrylic. If we go back to the original drawing, we can see that all labeled up, and you can even see that on the render we've got correct material type. So to do that, we're gonna have our main file selected, make a new component. This will be acrylic front. Press OK. I can do a new sketch on the front plane. Now, some of you might be tempted to just draw from here to here with a rectangle, possibly even snapping to those nodes. It is tempting, although I like, as just a nice habit, draw it separately and then move it and join it in, just in case any of these nodes need to be adjusted or changed, because that could cause conflicts and problems later on down the line, especially with more complex designs. So I'm going to select my rectangle, click, drag a little bit. I'm going to do 120 high and 170 wide. I can finish my sketch, move around a bit, press extrude 3mm, and then with my main file selected, I can go to joint, and here I can choose any of the corners and align them. So I'm going to select this surface and this corner. Now I'm going to do this surface and this corner. That's going to align to there, and we're good to go. And that is a basic photo frame. This will fit a 6x8 photo, and this could all be laser cut or even cut by hand. So we're now going to go a little bit extra, a little bit further, and we're going to add some materials, and we're going to add some rendering. So first things first, I'm going to right click on one of these and I'm going to press physical material. And I get this option coming. I'm going to bring it over here so you can see it all. So it says physical material. And I'm going to use a, if we go through, we'll get rid of plastics for now. We want woods. If we go through woods, we want MDF. And I can click and drag MDF onto these. So MDF for the back, the top, side, and the bottom spacer. Now, if you was to manufacture and have a different material, such as plywood, you could just choose a different material on here. This is only really relevant for the technical drawings, but it's a good practice to get into, a good habit. I'm then going to go to my plastic, and if I go to acrylic clear, I can drag that onto that. And you can see that that actually makes it go a little bit clear. It goes almost transparent. It does go transparent. See through it. So there is a bonus to doing this. It does a lot of the features for you, and it gives you a better representation of what we're doing. We can also press the letter A for appearance. I'll bring my appearance tool over to the side here, and we can play around with what we've got here. So you can see that if I go into woods and into unfinished, there's the choice of MDF board. So let's do MDF board then for our appearance. We're going to click and drag onto that one. Notice I've got bodies components selected up here, not faces. And then I can go to my other parts and make them look like MDF. Go. And this is already acrylic. So it's already transparent acrylic, how you want it. But you can change the appearance of it. So if you remember going back to my drawing, I had my slight blue tinge to mine because I chose a glass appearance for it. You could just leave it as a clear one. Personally, I prefer a little bit of a slightly different appearance. If we went to plastics, and you can choose some clearer plastics. So we want transparent, and there are some options here, but I think it looks slightly better with the smooth glass window. So you can go clear glass. I go for a slightly blue one, just out of preference. It just makes it easier to see that it is a different but also transparent material. So that is that. That's done. It's quite a short activity, but it shows you how to take a very, very basic drawing, like the one we've got in the top corner, through to CAD and to create all the parts. So this is a nice activity. Give this a go if you're struggling with taking a CAD drawing into a CAD file. Okay, good luck.